One of the questions that people have all the time with not only Rose of Sharon, but with every plant is, what can I do either now or in the spring to promote more flowers?
Yep.
I mean, let's face it. You want that because it's got those gorgeous flowers on them. What do you do to promote more growth of the actual flowers?
Well, Mark, that is a very valid question, and it's kind of hard to answer in less than 5 hours. Because
let's not go there.
Yeah, no, we don't dare.
Okay.
Each plant has, I'm going to call it its preference. Each plant, as we have talked about on the Rose of Sharon, some spireas, butterfly bush, and so on, flower on the new growth. Roses, are also in that same category. They flower on the new stems of each spring's growth.
Okay.
So you can prune roses this fall later. I don't like to force them into dormancy or try to and then have them be growing internally tissue-wise too late. But anyhow, roses are normally pruned hard in the spring. Or as hard as you wish. And the same with these other few plants. Now, if it's a magnolia, a lilac, a forsythia, whatever, those plants have already set their flower buds for next year. So one of the ways then, Mark, to cater to flower is to be sure which kind of plant you're dealing with. Lilacs, for example, can be pruned. You will not hurt the plant, but you will be indeed removing flower buds from that plant ready for next spring or next early summer's growth and beauty.
Right.
So that selection of when to prune is one of the things. The next thing is this business of cutting to outside buds is not a terribly significant thing. However, you can work with the natural shape of the plant if you do that, and then by virtue of air and sunshine moving through that plant earlier in the day, etc., whatever it may be, there is less incidence of disease. For example, wet springs like we've just had 2 years in a row. One of my arborist friends said, in a dry spring I'm a saint, and in a wet spring I'm a sinner, just by virtue of trying to defeat the fungal diseases and so on plants. Well, same thing. If you can get the plant to air out earlier in the morning, more sunshine in through the day, it will develop a little better. It will have less chance of contracting some of the many fungal diseases and so on. So that's kind of step 2. The next thing then is watch for fertilization. Now, this is the 5-hour part. Plants do a tremendous amount of things internally. It's something we never pay any attention to. And until you're a physiologist or cell anatomy person and you're working with electron microscopes, you never see these things. But plants are guided by their own hormones and lots of external factors from weather, both underground and above. When you trim a plant, I would still go back to the 25% reduction at any one time. Now, you can do that 2 years in a row and, so to speak, take the plant on down farther. As Bob did, no harm on a Rose of Sharon, but that comes nearly half of the height of the plant. A little bit on the drastic side, but they're so resilient, probably no trouble. But other plants, I would be a little cautious about doing it that way. So that, let's just say, is where you want to remove 25%. You are indeed taking off newer tissue as well as some old stems from the bottom. You're causing this plant to restart in the spring on less leaf-bearing structure. So, without going overboard, and this is where I recommend strong caution, I am not opposed to fertilizing plants that I have pruned, but I do it on what I will call the light side. Now, you're going to have to go back to package instructions and et cetera to get into the finest of details. But if, for example, a bag or box of fertilizer tells you to use a cup per whatever, I would be inclined, just because I want to keep that plant's health up, but not necessarily make it grow fast again, I would be inclined to cut that to as much as half of the amount of fertilizer. Now, there's all kinds of things that are pro and con on this, but that's just where I kind of try to guide things.